Hello, everyone. The end of the 80s and the beginning of the 90s was a time when a whole host of superstars broke into big bodybuilding. Dorian Yates, Kevin Levrone, Flex Wheeler, Chris Cormier, Paul Dillett, Sean Ray, and many others. The hero of our video today was not lost against their background, Paul Demayo. The size and training of his muscles, especially his thighs and arms, was simply amazing. Paul was nicknamed the quadriceps for his fantastically developed quads. It was as if he had taken over the baton from Tom Platz himself, and perhaps even surpassed him in the massiveness of his hips. Demayo was one of the few athletes who was called a bodybuilding phenomenon. He was predicted to have a bright future and a breakneck career, but in reality, everything turned out a little differently. And in this issue, we will remember the triumph of Paul Demayo, see his rise and terrible fall to the very bottom. Our hero was born on September 12, 1967 in sunny California. Paul was the eldest child in the family. He also had a younger brother and sister. The future bodybuilding star did not study very well at school and had no special purpose in life. Like many boys, he loitered, bullied, and played baseball and soccer in his spare time. "I wasn't a problem kid," Paul recalled. "But if there was some kind of mess somewhere, then I would definitely get involved in it. I've always been attracted to bad guys." Demayo's athletic career began with the high school football team, but one day the guy reconsidered his plans for the future and began to actively engage in bodybuilding, and it was like that. The team's training room featured squat racks and a bench press, and Paul began to press and squat. He regularly did these basic exercises and performed noticeably more volume than was necessary for a football player. It wasn't exactly bodybuilding, but Paul just wanted to get bigger. He trained without any system, nutrition plans, but he still gained muscles. Paul's body responded perfectly to the load. His genetics were just crazy. After graduating from high school, Demayo had nowhere to train, and he went to work in an asphalt paver. They paid about $60 a day there, and our hero had the opportunity to purchase a subscription to the Gold's Gym Club. In the new gym, Paul was surrounded by big guys. He looked at them with envy and he wanted to be just as big, and he started thinking about preparing for the competition. His desire was strengthened after he attended the Gold's Gym Classic tournament. Mr. Olympia Lee Haney came there with a guest posing. "Haney seemed incredibly huge to me," Demayo recalled, "and I'm smaller than ever. That's when I finally got into bodybuilding." Paul's first tournament was the 1987 Massachusetts State Championship. He won the junior category and finished fourth among men. Demayo was really happy, especially since a whole crowd of friends and relatives gathered to cheer for him that day. "It was the best tournament of my life because I didn't feel any pressure at that moment. I was just posing and I was into it. I've never felt such pleasure again," Paul confessed. A year later, in 1988, Demayo decided to test his strength at a higher level, Junior Nationals. After the first tournament in 1987 in Massachusetts, his gym friends told him that he was too smooth and undulating and that he lacked quality and muscle separation. Therefore, before his second start in his career, Paul lost weight from 102 to 96 kilograms. Rich Gaspari, who was famous for his impeccable muscle quality, became an example for him then. Nevertheless, Demayo took only 7th place in that competition. However, among those who beat him, no one subsequently became a star. As well as in '89, where he rose slightly higher to 4th place. And here too, the names of the rivals disappeared into obscurity. The following year, 1990, was another matter. Paul takes part in the Junior Nationals tournament again and gets into the top 3 in the heavyweight division. He first won then was Robert Rotrak, whose name won't say much even to bodybuilding experts. But the second place was taken by the future legend Flex Wheeler. The amazing thing is that despite the fact that Paul's back has always been a weak spot, he loved to train this particular muscle group the most. But least of all, Paul liked to rock his huge hips. "I've always had good hips, and already at the age of 20 they had a very impressive volume." But let's return to the career of our hero. The following year, 1991, Paul entered the Junior Nationals tournament, where he finally celebrated his victory beating another future star, Kevin Levrone, by just 1 point. Moreover, Demayo is so confident in himself that he declares for the U.S. National Championships and takes bronze there. Many still consider the participants of that tournament and their level of training to be the strongest in history. Kevin Levrone won then, Flex Wheeler became the second, and the great Ronnie Coleman remained only the fourth. Winning the U.S. title was Paul's next goal, which he spent another 3 years trying to achieve. Everything happened again as in the history of the junior championships. In '92, he ranks fourth behind Chris Duffy, Bo Matlock, and Edgar Fletcher. Do any of you know these athletes? If so, congratulations. You are a true bodybuilding fan. After that setback, Demayo angrily announced his retirement. He was understandable. After the defeat, he approached one of the judges and asked what he was missing. The judge did not hesitate to advise Demayo to be as bold as possible, and Paul took this advice literally. He spent a whole year preparing for the U.S. Championships, became practically a hermit, trained with iron and on a treadmill for 4 hours a day, gave up all the joys of life, canceled many guest poses, and refused to sign new lucrative contracts with sponsors. All the energy and all the attention was focused on preparing for the USA Championship. And on July 10, 1993, in his native California in Santa Monica, he entered the stage of the U.S. Championship, but became only the third behind Chris Cormier and Mike Francois. Yes, it dried perfectly, made excellent quality and separation, but at the same time it lost too many muscles, drained volumes, and looked flat on stage at 104 kilograms. Demayo draws conclusions again, does a lot of work on mistakes, works hard in the gym for a whole year, adds 12 kilograms of pure muscle mass, and wins the long-awaited title on October 22, 1994 in Orlando. He then put up 116 kilograms with decent relief and confidently won, becoming the new absolute champion of the USA, beating Craig Titus, Don Long, and Tony Freeman. Paul receives the long-awaited IFBB Professional Bodybuilder card, and with it fat advertising contracts of sponsors and recognition. Our hero is being actively promoted in the press, and training videos are being released on TV with his participation. Since Paul's arms, especially triceps, were recognized by fans and experts as almost the best in the bodybuilding world, he willingly shared the secrets of their volume. Videotapes of his training sessions were flying off the shelves like hot cakes. On the training recordings, he showed everyone his favorite triceps exercises. French bench press, arm extension with a dumbbell while standing in a tilt and arm extension on a block with one-hand reverse grip. In each exercise, he usually performed 3 to 4 sets of 10 to 12 repetitions. I took a short rest between sets, no more than a minute. Paul's promotion was facilitated not only by his excellent physical form, but also by his photogenic appearance. As befits a bodybuilding star, he moved to the bodybuilding mecca of Los Angeles, but returned home very soon. "Everything is too expensive there," he confessed. "With the money I spent on rent, I could buy 2 Corvettes." At that time, one of Demayo's sponsors was the sports nutrition company MedRx, with which he was contracted to compete at the Mr. Olympia tournament in 1995. But it turned out that the athlete was completely unprepared for this start, and if it wasn't for the commitment to the sponsors, he would hardly have entered the main tournament. This is how all athletes dream of one day entering the IFBB main tournament. Paul was forced to take part in the competition against his will. He forces the preparation and goes on stage. The 1995 Olympia was later dubbed the Monster Tournament of the Masses. For the first time, the average weight of the participants was 107 kilograms, and Demayo did not spoil the statistics. With a height of 177 centimeters, he put up 114 kilograms. He managed to become the 12th of the 16 participants. It's not the best result, but here you need to understand which blocks of bodybuilding entered the competitive scene at that time. Ronnie Coleman, Charles Claremont, Sonny Schmidt, and Darren Charles did not make the top 10. Flex Wheeler became only the 8th. For comparison, Kevin Levrone, with whom Paul fought on equal terms just 4 years ago, confidently finished second. Dorian Yates won, while Nasser El Sonbadi, Sean Ray, Vince Taylor, and Chris Cormier were also in the top 6. I think that any athlete from this list could compete for the Sando statuette today. By the way, Paul considered Yates to be his idol. He was not gifted with outstanding genetics, and he owes everything he has achieved to very hard work. Demayo revered Yates not only as an athlete, but also as a person because he was a normal, quiet, and modest guy. With absolutely phenomenal arms and hips, Demayo still lacked back development at that tournament, and his muscles looked a little smooth. However, Paul never liked being overdone on stage. His element was mass. In this, he was similar to his idol Dorian Yates. However, if the Briton became a legend during his lifetime, then Paul's life in bodybuilding can be said to have ended in the same year, 1995. After Olympia in 95 in the same year, Paul participates in 3 more Grand Prix tournaments. But the result on them shows depressing. It ranks 9th in Spain and Germany and 10th in the UK. And almost immediately, Demayo starts having problems in his personal life. Paul had a beautiful girlfriend, Jill, with whom he later could not find a common language. The couple broke up to spite Jill. Paul married someone else, and you know what that marriage often leads to. Demayo gets 2 years in prison for abusing his wife, and after prison, the once promising bodybuilder's life begins to go downhill. His acquaintances and friends repeatedly asked him to pull himself together, but it was difficult to reach the champion. Demayo stopped performing altogether, his contracts with sponsors were terminated, and after a hard fall from Olympia, he became a fitness trainer. However, he did not work as a coach for very long because he was caught working with people in another gym, which was then forbidden. The athlete fell into severe depression and then drugs. It's no secret that some professional bodybuilders of that time were abusing drugs. Paul Demayo's outcome was sad. The athlete died on June 2, 2005. The dead bodybuilder was discovered by his father at their home in Malden, Massachusetts. The cause of death was an overdose. Demayo was only 37 years old. Unfortunately, the life of this wonderful, promising athlete ended too soon. But despite the sad end, Paul Demayo is still remembered and revered by bodybuilding fans around the world. Our hero's dream was to open his own gym. The son of simple parents, he did not seek wealth, but simply wanted to have enough money for a living. He also dreamed of a wife and children, but in reality, it doesn't always come out as beautifully as in your dreams. And as always, I will be grateful for your support. It helps in the development of the channel. Please like, subscribe to the channel, share the video with your friends, and do not forget to click on the bell so as not to miss the new release. Thanks for watching. Sports Guru was with you. See you later.